I'm Dave Russell, Vice President of Storage Technologies and Strategies at Gartner.
My name is Dave Cappuccio, Managing Vice President for 5 of the teams of Gartner Research: servers, storage, client platforms, IT operations, and a new team we just founded called Data Center and Facilities.
My name is Tom Bittman, and I'm the Chief of Research for Infrastructure and Operations and the lead analyst on virtualization. Virtualization is so important now because it does a couple of things. It solves tactical problems, especially cost reduction. It helps you reduce your server sprawl. It helps you reduce your power requirements. It helps you reduce your data center space. All tactical problems. But it also helps you strategically. We believe virtualization is a major part of an overall infrastructure and operations evolution. Virtualization makes it possible to automate, which we believe leads organizations to a real-time infrastructure.
So one of the topics that's very interesting nowadays for many clients is the notion of server virtualization and how that relates to storage. Server virtualization oftentimes means a radical change in terms of the server estate, and when that happens, there's changes downstream in the storage world. SRM, or Storage Resource Management tools, really now are trying to get a more complete view of what's going on not only in storage, but how to tie that back into physical servers as well as virtual machines, server virtualized environments.
The relationship between virtualization and power and cooling is interesting because in many instances people use virtualization to avoid the power and cooling problem. They brought in multiple servers, consolidated hundreds down to one data center, and realized that those servers are running on average 10 to 15%. One application, one server. That was the traditional model. By using virtualization, I can run 10, 15, 20, 50 applications on a single server, all with virtual images, and essentially run that server from 10% up to 80, 90% utilization. You get a lot more effective throughput out of the same box and reducing the number of boxes on the floor, therefore reducing the power.
Virtualization is often seen as a consolidation solution, but it's actually the opposite. It's actually about decoupling two things that are locked together, creating an abstraction layer between two different elements in an IT infrastructure. And that makes it possible to deliver those different elements in different ways, through different means, from a third-party provider, through cloud computing. So virtualization is much more about making portability and decoupling happen than it is about consolidation.
When we look at what are the top 2 things that clients should consider around storage resource management, the first one that comes to mind is really having a clear and prioritized list of the capabilities that are important for your environment. The second thing that we really feel is critical is that most SRM deployments fail in the implementation phase. So it's very important to make sure you've got a clear and well-defined path for how you're going to roll out these solutions.
We're often asked by our clients where the cost savings are with virtualization, and some of them aren't seeing it. What it really comes down to is you definitely save money by reducing your server spending. You definitely save money by reducing the power requirements in your data center, and you can save money by reducing your space requirements. On the other hand, you're buying a new level of software that needs to be managed. That software is not cheap, and especially today, it's not a very competitive market yet. We're just now seeing competition enter the market. As the competition heats up, the prices, we believe, for that virtualization layer will decline, and then you're going to see more and more savings.
SRM, or Storage Resource Management, is something that's been around since the late 90s, and since the early 2000s, what we've really seen is this has gone from an area of overinflated expectations of one single pane of glass to manage the entire storage estate from, to really a variety of different tools offered by many different vendors now, some of which are more or less complete than others. So in the context of your overall interest and requirements, what's important to look at is how complete these solutions are, what's most important to be covered by the various vendors, and going forward, are those tool sets going to evolve to meet your needs? It's not critical that absolutely every feature is implemented, but it may be important that your environment's addressed today from functionality perspective as well as from your resources in terms of your storage assets, your server assets, and your networking devices.
There are a few key best practices to make server virtualization successful. Think big, looking at the strategy. Where are you going long term? What's the evolutionary path that you want to be on? How are you going to manage this? And what are some of the new features you're going to take advantage of? We'd say do that first. Another major factor is because now we have competition in this market, we think it's very important to have a rapid return on investment. We believe you should have a return on investment and a business case that gets you a return within 6 months or less. On the other hand, also look beyond just cost reduction and look at some of the benefits like disaster recovery, rapid deployment, flexibility that's enabled by virtualization. A third one is to virtualize the right applications. We think it's very important for you to understand which applications are ready for virtualizations and which one are not quite ready. I/O-intensive applications are not good targets for virtualization in your first pass. Over time, done carefully, it could possibly work, but don't jump into I/O-intensive applications first. Take a close look at software pricing, at licensing, and also at vendor support issues before you jump into virtualizing an application.
IT modernization is not a project per se, it's a process. Many clients today argue that they're modernizing all the time, and that in fact is true. But the problem is we've traditionally modernized in a vertical way. We've modernized the servers, modernized storage, modernized the networks, modernized the infrastructure, but not looking at all the effects on all the equipment. We call it the domino effect. If you modernize one part of your environment, that modernization effort might affect another part, which might affect another part, and those dominoes begin to fall over, and it has a cascade effect throughout the data center. So we're cautioning clients, and when you start thinking about modernization, what you need to think about is the cascade effects. Any single large project like virtualization, think about if I virtualize and I start bringing in these very large servers, what are the cascade effects and how they'll affect other parts of the infrastructure. So before you make that decision, you need to understand the impacts. For Gartner clients today, one of the most active areas of research is data centers. If you're involved with data centers in any facet, you need to attend the Data Center Conference in 2008.